to look at questions that have been getting into you, questions that have been eating you, and we want to look at those questions and understand. We are going to have a very easy moment. We are going to have a very interactive discussion around certain very important questions around our practice. But before we jump into that discussion, just tell us how you've had your day. Tell us. Me, I've had a fantastic day. I've met new people. I have prospected. What have you done? Tell us on your chat so that we can be able to know that something happened to you today. It could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. That is how life is. Please tell us how you've had your day. I can see Jacinta and DC is saying, my day was good, no complaints. Roller coaster, that is Florence Nantongo. I believe she's from Uganda. How are you doing? How's Kampala? Let me guess that you're in Kampala for the sake of guesswork. I assume that you're from Uganda. Can you confirm you're from that very lovely place called Uganda, where there's a lot of food, Yes, tell us how you've had your day like. Nancy Njogu has said it has been a busy day. Nancy Njogu has said it has been a busy day. Hopline Mbanda, my day was great and busy, plus June weather is doing the most. That one is something else. It is like Mount Kenya has come to the city, so we are experiencing the Murema in the CBD. I can see Catherine Anaya. Catherine Anaya, thank God for the day. That is very, very good. Grace Kimeli, my good friend Grace Kimeli has said, I managed to peer review a colleague's manuscript. And today we are going to talk about books that are being launched, Grace. We're going to talk about books that are going to be launched. Dorcas, you have said, I am still in traffic jam. It is being a busy day. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Richard J. Magoma. Richard J. Magoma is a HR professional. I do MC work, and I also assist people in interview preparation. I also train people in public speaking. Tonight, we are going to do this moderation with, there's a assigned language interpreter, that is Catherine Sidandi. I hope she's there, but I'm assuming she's there. She assists in creating that environment of diversity and inclusion. We want to dive into the conversation of the questions that have been eating you for quite a while. But before we get into the questions, let me tell you the organizations or the partners that have made this particular conversation possible. We have the Nile front cottages. If you want to enjoy very panoramic, very scenic places in Uganda, that is around Jinja, I think, the general area of Jinja, Nile front cottages is a place to go. They do very good work in terms of accommodation, in terms of food, in terms of customer experience. They are very, very good. Then we have Profiles International. Profiles International are the specialists in emotional intelligence, psychometric tests. If you want to pick people who will be very productive in your team, Profiles International will, of course, be your port of call. Then we have K2 HR services. If you're in Rwanda, and of course, they are extending to the other parts of East Africa, don't forget to contact K2 HR services led by Stephen Karangwa. Then there is State Steadfast Quality Solutions Limited. The team lead is Herbert Zake. Herbert Zake is a strength finder. He has done this strength finding. More than 500 senior people. And if you want to know what are your strengths, please contact Herbert Zake, who leads the team at Steadfast Quality Solutions Limited in Uganda. Then if you're thinking of insurance, think of AAR. They have a tagline, you are in control. Then if you are in Mombasa, people in Kenya, actually East Africa, love going to the coast to go and relax once they have made money. So go to Hotel Sapphire. They have very nice coffee. They have a very nice swimming pool. The ambience is quite right. The expenses are quite friendly. Hotel Sapphire is the place to be if you are in the coast. Then there is Panessa Training Institute. If you are into good work, metal work, those things that we put in the house so that the house can be comfortable, they train people to become proficient in those things. That is good work and metal work as well. Panessa Training Institute. Then we have Port Sacco. Port Sacco, they uplift life by financial wellness. You save and get very good returns. If you are into saving, Port Sacco are the people to talk to. Then if you are a person who loves food, and you are in Nanyuki, Soted Kinyumbani is the place to be. They cook very fresh food, very traditional food, very tasty. Sotet Kinyumbani, S-O-T-E, Kinyumbani is the place to be. Then now we have an event that is coming in August. That is from the 6th to the 8th of August. And the event is called Africa Transformational Leadership Conference. The cost is how much? 50,000. It is going to be at Sarova Pan-Afric, Nairobi. Transforming your organizations and society between the 6th and 8th of August. Yes, please.
No, that one has been postponed.
Okay, all right.
October 1st, 3rd.
All right, it has been taken to October 3rd. Then I am sure Growth Grit Mentorship Program is on course, right? Second, it has already started. I don't know if somebody can join and catch up. The cost is 24,000. You will earn 4 CBDs after you have finished that course. You will learn about HR audit, HR policies, HR budgeting, how to set up HR department. This is the kind of mentorship that you want to be so that you can learn the best things about managing a HR organization. And of course, there will be a book launch, Do It Unafraid. And of course, one of the writers is our very own Grace Nzula, the moderator of choice. Let me check the date. When the book will be launched. Please don't, I'll be reminding you the date when the book will be launched. Of course, our Grace is one of the writers, but tonight we are going to ask questions that we think or we have been feeling like we should ask. So we will continuously ask our questions on our chats so that we can pick them up. Grace, I know her as a fantastic trainer, a fantastic strategist, very good in team building. She's the team lead of Atara Solutions, where you get inspired, where you become a leader, where you think outside the box. But tonight, she's on the hot seat of answering HR questions. Today, she's the one answering HR questions. We are going to unplug. We are going to be easy. And as I wait for the questions to come, Grace, how are you doing? What else do you want to tell us before we jump into the questions of the day?
Thank you so much, Richard. Good evening, everybody. I am glad to see that you're on the chat. You're saying you have had a good day. I also have had an amazing day today. It's very cold though, but we are doing well. Have I had an amazing day? I have had an okay day. My friend lost the dad, so we are in mourning. So we are what? We are saying rest in peace. But other than that, I am good and I'm looking forward to this session. I don't think we've had this session in a while. I think the last time we did this was 2 years ago. So, and today we decided, you know what, it's time to also just come and have conversations that are real, that are practical, that are also not scripted, so that then we are also answering your real questions. In the meantime, please give us a list or suggest to us the speakers and topics you'd want to hear. We'll be reaching out to you very soon, so that you can also let us know the conversations to have, or rather what you're looking for. So thank you very much, Richard. We can go on. I'm all yours now.
Thank you, Grace. Being a HR person is completely a loneless job. It is a very difficult job. If you were to do a question and put it on LinkedIn, we do a question and put it on X and say, which department you hate most? Definitely HR will come up. Why do you think this is? Some people get afraid of getting into HR because they are afraid of very many things, actually myths that surround HR. Can you demystify some of these myths so that people can be able to understand HR is a good place to be? It's a good practice to pursue.
All right. Thank you, Richard. I think to me, one of the biggest myth, is it the biggest or whatever we use, is a lot of people believe that HR works is one-sided. Sometimes we are told that we are pro-management, but most of the time HR is in the middle. But however, one of the things that we keep forgetting is the HR person is also an employee. You know, in as much as we sit in management, we are also receiving salaries like the rest of the people. And at the end of the day, sometimes, eventually, you may not make decisions that you're okay with. Sometimes you'll implement decisions that are made by management, like anybody else. So one of the myths that we get is the fact that HR is pro-management, or HR is it's an unsaid thing. You know, everybody expects that HR is not an employee. They seem to like, you know, sort of put up on a pedestal. And that's why, for example, the Coldplay thing really went on and on, because the HR was involved, and HR is supposed to be role modeling. We forget that we are the humans as well. Into these organizations, we are employees, we are human beings, and at the same time, we are also professionals as well. So you find that sometimes you saw how that thing went viral, because we cannot just be forgiven that easily, you know. So one of the things that is people think is that HR is a know-it-all. HR is doesn't have feelings, and HR is not even bothered by quite a number of things that they make, because they get to be either a messenger of a decision made, or the implementer of the decision, you know. So one of the myths that I think has been major is that one, Richard.
And actually, you have seen, like, now the issue of separation. You've seen it going viral. I don't want to mention the organization. The human resource professional is blamed for any bungled separation.
In fact, let me tell you something, Richard, on that thing for separation. We need to be very, very clear about some of these decisions, because the business leadership will come and tell you that I do not ever want to see this person here. But it's up to you to now wear your advisory cap. You advise that we need to follow procedure regardless of the decision made, and you make sure that you follow procedure, right? Because unfortunately, I have seen in situations, or rather I have been in a situation where somebody asks you to implement a decision, and then they go back on their word. They're like, I did not tell you to do that. All I told you is to to get rid of that person, or all I told you was to implement this decision. Did I come to dictate how you are going to do it? It is up to you to know how you're going to do it. So, and as HR professionals, I think one of the things that we really need to learn is to be advisors, but at the same time as we are advising, know that at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, because I have been in court myself defending a decision that was made, but because I am the HR, I have to go and follow up in court. I'm the one who is going in as a witness, So at the end of the day, and you lose that case, everybody's going to be looking at you like you failed them. So I think one of the things that I have been asking HR professionals is, in as much as you're being told to implement a certain decision, please make sure that due process is followed. Even if they tell you, I never want to see this person again, it is up to you to know how you are going to make sure that that decision that is being implemented, you have followed full procedure, so that at the end of the day, it doesn't backfire on you. And you people will be like, I thought you're HR, I thought you knew what to do. I have seen people being blamed for those things. So it's up to us just make sure that due process is followed. And then when and make sure you advise, and you advise firmly as well, so that then and you make sure that you're not speaking at that point when emotions are very high. If your CEO is very mad at that point and they want that person gone immediately, it is not time to tell them, no sir. It is up to you to say, hey, yes, you retreat, and then you go back, and then you're like, you know what, I understand why we need to let this person go. However, we need to follow this procedure, so that then we do not just lose on the person, and then we end up paying them a whole 12 months of pay and other damages if they were to ever go to court. Richard.
Thank you, Grace. And you've said that one of the things that you need to do is to be very firm. But for you to be firm, there are certain practices, there are certain tools that HR should rely on so that they can be able to save their professional reputation. Are there certain tools or practices that you can advise HRs to always rely on making a decision? As you've said, forget a bit being emotional, use certain tools that are available, and they will be able to protect your reputation.
I think the one thing that we need to actually understand is, if you're a HR professional, you need to know when you need to apply the technical HR side of things, which is now, for example, when we're talking about the legal matters, those are technical HR things, and when to apply the humane side, because that is probably what complicates our jobs, because we have to deal with people, and people are emotional beings. And then if you're dealing with emotional beings, it means that you have to apply the technical side of things to an emotional person. So one of the things that we need to actually use as a tool is understanding the labor laws. What does the law say in your country about, for example, termination? What does the law say about disciplinary management? What does the law say about the specific matters? Because if you can understand the technical sides of HR, it becomes easy to actually now go to the strategic side of things, which is what we now keep saying. When you go into leadership positions, one of the tools that you need to rely on are the soft skills. So, but in operational side of things, you need to really understand the technical sides of HR. Can you follow the labor laws? Do you understand your policies? Are you able to update your policies, or are you able to recommend an update of your policies, so that as you seek out other an improvement into your workplaces, then it becomes easier because you understand the technical skills. So seek ye first to understand the technical skills of HR, and then you can start again as you build up on your soft skills, because technical skills will go a long way with the soft skills, especially because you're managing people. Unfortunately for HR professionals, we don't get to pack, it's not like for lack of a better example, like engineers. You can become very good so long as you're in technical team. You can become very good in technical, and then once you go to management, you can start building your managerial role. Your soft skills. For HR, you have to carry them hand in hand. You need to handle your technical skills of HR and handle your soft skills in HR. So emotional intelligence works hand in hand with understanding that this is a legal case. This guy has stolen, or this guy is not coming to work because something is happening at home. He's probably going through a divorce. So you get to balance these two. Emotional or rather soft skills, you got to know how to communicate with your people. But what are you communicating? You're communicating the technical side of things. So you really need to keep investing in your technical know-how when it comes to the HR profession, as well as your soft skills. Richard.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you've mentioned the aspect of soft skills. What soft skills do you find quite important and quite critical for HR to immerse themselves in so that they're able to drive the technical? You've mentioned emotional intelligence. What other skills should HR dive into so that they're able to push for the technical know-how?
Leadership skills. Leadership and management. Let's not forget management. Leadership and management skills. You need to become a very good communicator. You need to understand how to communicate, and then you need to also understand, have entrepreneurial skills. You need to think like a business person. You need to think like a human being, and you also need to think like a HR professional. All this in one. So you need to invest in entrepreneurial skills. You need to invest in communication skills. You need to have very good interpersonal skills. You need to invest in becoming very good at managing conflict. You also need to invest in how you are relating with people. You have to understand how your relationship, what do we call it? Relationship currency is working, your social currency. Are you able to sell an idea? Because when it comes to managing change, you need to also be able to convince others that this change is actually necessary. And that way, the only way you can get to do that is if you can sell the idea persistently and also consistently, and where you are convincing. You have to be convincing so that people can buy into the ideas that you're bringing. And that's why whenever we are talking about moving to a strategic side of things, one of the things that helps you move into the strategic side of things is your soft skills. And top on whatever is the 5 that I have mentioned: communication skills, emotional intelligence, leadership and management, conflict resolution, interpersonal skills, where you get to invest in yourself, and of importance is to understand your style of leadership. You as a human being, you need to understand how you show up as a leader, and at what point what happens, and especially the ability to control your emotions when it becomes difficult. I'm going back to emotional intelligence, but that's key. Richard.
Thank you. And I'm very delighted that you've mentioned very important things. You've mentioned strategy, you've mentioned entrepreneurial acumen. Many times are occasions whereby HRs are accused of taking qualitative projects to people who approve, and those projects or initiatives are rejected because it is supposedly HRs have not made a business case. What can you advise HR people so that when they go with initiatives to those powerful people in the C-suite who are going to apply the expense so that it is smooth? What advice? Because I know you are in the board in many organizations, you train people. So what can you advise HR people so that they succeed in their initiatives?
One of the things that HR needs to do is be able to speak the business language. Now, how do you learn how to speak the business language? You need to understand your business, or the organization business that you're in, like the way you understand who you are. Okay, some of us don't even know who we are. Anyway, but you need to understand the business you're in. And then you also need to understand how your leadership thinks. All right. There's leadership that does not want stories. There's leadership that just wants to hear specific things. So as you tailor make your propositions, you need to make sure that you're aligning to how your leadership thinks. For example, I've been in situations where the leadership loves innovation. They love when you're coming up with different ways of doing things. They love being challenged. Now, if you know that your leadership loves being challenged, it's up to you to keep thinking every time you encourage innovation and all that. But then you have this other leadership that does not want to hear about innovation directly. They want it to be put, what do we call it? Packaged totally complete with profits and what we are about to gain. So one of the things that you need to learn is to become a salesperson and be able to know, this is the idea I'm selling to the management. These are the benefits they will get. This is the amount of money that will come. And this is how we are going to make that money. Okay, because unfortunately HR wants to say, let us invest in a clocking machine so that we can monitor how people are coming in and out of work. And then what? So that now that we have monitored, what else? So what? That we have done this. So if you're proposing, for example, an investment into a HRIS that is connected to a time and attendance, you just go and convince your board and package it and say that we have noticed that we need to keep tabs on how many hours people are working in our workplace. And therefore, we need to have a clock-in system and a clock-out system so that we can start understanding at what point we are making losses and where we are gaining as a HR department, because HR is, let me tell you, the one thing that business language people understand are two things. Are we making money, or are we reducing costs? Or are we saving money? Or are we looking after? So if you are wanting to convince them to invest in giving you a HRIS, you need to speak the business language. What is the business likely to gain by investing in a HRIS? What is the business likely to gain by taking your people to training in Mombasa? What is your business meant to gain, or will gain, if you take people for team building in Naivasha? That is the one thing that you will always understand. How can you speak business language? How can you present this budget of yours so that instead of it being cut, you're actually be given top up? Oh yeah, and the other thing that HR people need to learn is advocacy. You really need to know how to advocate for your projects and for your ideas. Have a conversation with your CEO. Try and see, where are they in terms of these ideas you're trying to nini. Are they also linked to your business strategy? So you need to really, really learn how to think business-wise, and always ask yourself, now that I'm taking this report to my boss, so what? So what that he knows how many people have been coming to work? Are we able to say that we are going to reduce this? So what if we take people to Naivasha for team building? So what if we have flexi hours? What is this that our business is likely to gain? So are we talking productivity? That if we work from home, productivity is likely to shoot by 10%. And how are we going to monitor it? We're going to do 1, 2, 3 things. And we will report back next month, having shown you how it works. That is the language that we expect you to bring in the boardroom, not just writing papers. Richard.
Very good. And that is related to a question that has come on the chat. When you give good advice, but it falls on deaf ears, or maybe there's resistance to the initiatives, how should you handle when advice initiatives fall on deaf ears?
Now, you need to, like I said, you need to understand how your management works. All right. I talked about advocacy. Sometimes I find HR wants to give ideas, and when they are shut down, they also pack their ideas and go. You need to go and reward your ideas. And I keep saying, if you want to bring your ideas and you're facing resistance, go and sit down and think, how else can I package these so that it makes sense? What am I missing? What is the language that this management speaks, so that I can speak the same language as they are? So for you, it's up to you to go back and repackage this message. What is it that you're trying to do? Maybe the person who's asked can give us an example, and I would be able to give you a tailor-made solution to that. But for you, it is to think about, why are they shutting down? Why is this? And it's the same as we do in change management. Why are people resisting change? And normally top on the list is because they are afraid of what the change will do to them. And I tell you what, I learned one thing from Dr. Oginde when he was teaching us on self-leadership. He said that people are very selfish. People will always look at things in their own perspective and only to what can benefit them. And therefore, as leaders, for us to get things that we want, we need to be able to speak the language that this person understands, so that then they can see the gain of whatever it is that you're introducing. So if you're facing resistance in selling your ideas, please go back and repackage them. Understand, have you packaged it as a business person, or are you just packaging it as a person? And then remove your feelings out of it. And unfortunately, I keep hearing that HR is saying, my boss never listens to me. And I'm like, what are you telling your boss? You know, because some of them you need to teach them the value of HR. It's up to you to teach them the value of HR, not to assume that HR is supposed to be given or their ideas are supposed to be approved immediately, and for marketing they can be delayed. No. You have to be able to speak business language. You need to understand these guys are resisting this change. Why are they resisting? Your why. Yeah? Your why. Richard. Oh, I see somebody on the chat here.
Advise my boss on how the labor laws says, because she sometimes do the opposite of the law. Sometimes she becomes emotional. So it is about compliance. It's about compliance.
No, you cannot keep quiet when somebody is going back against the law. But at the same time, what we are saying is, how have you, in communication, one of the things that we teach in communication, we say it is not what you say, it is how you say it. If your boss has said, go and fire this person, I do not care what the law says. Have you tried to go back and write an email and advise that this is what the law says, and this is what you are likely to lose if we take this route? And like I said, whenever you have somebody who is becoming emotional, it is very expensive for some of these things. Let me tell you, it is sometimes it's very expensive to keep a thief because you want to follow due process. And employers sometimes don't understand why we have to keep a thief here, and we need to follow the due process. But it is up to you to look at how can I package this so that it makes sense as a business. In fact, sometimes I've had situations where I remove the judgments on where somebody has been awarded something similar. I go and come up with case laws, and I cite them and I cite them and I cite them, and then I advise, kindly let me know if to still implement the decision you made. And if they insist that they are going to make that decision, I will go ahead and implement it. Because at the end of the day, remember, you have a job to do. And you are an employee like any other. So because you have given your advisory, and like there's an Ethiopian saying that the proverb that says, you listen to all the advice given, but make a decision on the wise one. Now that you have given your wisdom, and you still the decision is still the same, you go ahead and implement. Yeah, and make sure that your stand is known. Not when they are very angry. Please remember, even for you, when you're mad, you never listen. So it is up to you. When they say, let this person go, and let them go immediately. Please, you can say, okay, thank you very much, I will get it done. And then go take a walk and everything. And then when you know they have come down, later in that day, go and sit down and with them and let them know that if we let this person go like this is what we are likely to lose. And then if they still tell you, I do not care, go and get it done, you go and write an email about the solutions that you have. Okay? You go and write an email of what you have written. And if they still insist you let this person go, please do. All right? But as much as possible, ensure that you follow due process. There is always a way. Please make sure you will follow the due process. Richard, I see the chat is lit.
Yes, I can see Marta is saying our biggest challenge in HR is that presenting reports in data form in order to convince the board. How do you ensure that those data analytics and how to apply them in HR reports? Please bring us someone on data analytics and metrics. She's requesting if we have done this before, but it doesn't harm to repeat it. How we can be able, Okay, let's talk about it, Grace. Me, I'm not a mathematician. I don't like maths. How can a person like me and any other person who does not like mathematics bring the issue of data analytics to a report so that they are able to be convincing?
So the first thing that you need to understand is the metrics in your business. You know, for example, in manufacturing, they will have a metric on turnaround time. They will have a metric on time and attendance. They will have, or rather, absenteeism. They will have a metrics on attrition. They will have a metrics on how many bottles, for example, if they're producing bottles, how many bottles are produced by how many people at what duration of time. All right. So it depends on your institution. What are the metrics in your business? You can just go and ask, look at your business model and just try observe and get to understand. Okay, first of all, you need to understand what are the metrics. What are HR metrics? Number one. And then take the HR metrics and start choosing one by one what applies to you. And this is part of you. Please make sure you join the mentorship program next year in January when we're having the cohort 3, because this is some of the things that we teach you. So once you identify the metrics in your business, or rather in your business, or rather the HR metrics, then you take these metrics and apply the ones that apply to your business. Because not all of them, different sectors have different metrics that apply to them. So you look at it and see, we are dealing with knowledge workers. What are the metrics that apply in HR? We are also dealing with, because there is something that is, first of all, very common. Compliance metrics will always be compliance metrics, but how serious are they? In manufacturing and in security, for example, health and safety metrics are very high, you know. In knowledge workers, for example, some of those things may not be very important. So it's up to you to understand what are data analytics, or rather, what are the metrics, and then can you analyze these metrics that you've received data for to make it make sense. And one of the things that you need to observe are the trends. What are the trends we can read from this data? And then from this data, what else can we add? And so what? One of the questions that you'll need to always ask is, so what? So what, so what, so what? And you can go to our YouTube channel. We hosted Nelson, who took us through data analytics, I think sometime last year. There's a whole program on data analytics there, and you can actually get to understand more on data analytics. Richard.
I have seen a question about a situation whereby line managers don't go the extra mile and they even go forth and cover for those people they are in charge of. So it affects performance. And I'm thinking, Grace, one of the most feared thing after separation is performance management. How should HR people handle this so that it doesn't become a thorn in the flesh?
It's performance management. Come again?
I am saying, I've seen a question by somebody asking, there are situations whereby the line managers don't go the extra mile. Then besides not going the extra mile, they go forth and cover for the employees who are underperforming. And I can remember, or I can say that one of the most feared things after the dismissal or termination is performance management. How can HR people manage performance management? Of course, we know that performance management is supposed to be in line management, but what can HR contribute so that performance management is done well, it is not feared, it is productive? What can we do?
I think the first thing that we always encourage people is, please run the sessions called HR for non-HR. Your managers have not gone to a HR class. They do not know how you think, but you have an opportunity to train them. Please teach them HR for non-HR. Even the person who has sent us there, then there are these HR managers who want to act as non-HR managers who want to act as HR managers. Please make sure that you create other leaders by training them. Train them why it is important to follow due process. Train them how to set goals, Invite us to come to your organizations and train them on performance management. Let them understand how to set goals. Let them understand why it is important that they are part of the performance process. And of course, help them build their confidence. I've seen a lot of line managers, they don't want to take responsibility for performance because, one, they lack confidence, and number two, they don't want to be able to give proper feedback. or they are afraid of having difficult conversations. So you can't train the line managers to be able to give feedback, to be able to have difficult conversations, and to be able to own up. And this is very, very important when you're doing especially internal promotions. You really need to look beyond performance. Unfortunately, when somebody, a lot of organizations, and especially in the private sector, we see somebody has been performing, and then boom, because they are very good performance, they are ready for management. And then you don't invest in them and giving them management and leadership tools, because they will need them. They are very good technically, but for them to lead a team, for them to be able to support you in the leadership or the team leadership, then they need to actually learn how to lead. So when you do internal promotions, ensure that you actually upgrade your people so that they can get to understand HR for non-HR and polish their leadership skills. It is so, so important. Unfortunately, you promote people and then you leave them there. And you assume that because they were very good at their job, they must be very good at managing people. They are not. They do not know how to manage people. So please, as you do internal, please invest in coaching, invest in mentorship, invest in training, so that these managers that you have promoted, these team leaders that you've given positions, can start polishing and understanding why they're in that position. I have been in situations, there's a time we were doing a leadership training for people who have been promoted to supervisors. And you could tell, these guys were like, how do I tell my former friend that you are not performing? Again, go to our YouTube channel. We talked about that. My colleague Anne was here, and she taught us how to deal when you have been promoted, and how to deal with your peers. So we really, really need to invest. Now, when you understand performance management does not start today. And then performance appraisals is not an occasion. It is an ongoing process. So when you do goal setting, you need to be present. You need to support your managers in doing check-ins. They first of all need to understand what you mean by performance management. How is your performance cycle decided? And then what are the procedures for performance management? Then you can start demanding this of them. Otherwise, you can't just sit in the HR office and you claim that your teams don't understand and performance management. Have you taught them? And then demonstrate to them how it looks. What is the conversation you have when you're having performance reviews? What is the conversation you're having when you are even putting somebody on PIP? They need to understand that when you put somebody on PIP, there is support that is needed for that person to be able to support to thrive. Are they able to give that support as well? So it is really, really a change management process, number one, that you need to support your line managers to understand performance management. Now, here's the catch, that sometimes even some HRs don't understand the performance management process, either for their organizations or for themselves. Please invest in knowledge learning, in knowledge gaining. Learn. How do you do goal setting? How do you set objectives? What model are you using? All these things. Please learn technical HR. It is so important. It is what differentiates you from these non-HR people, because all they know is how to lead. But they only fight you because you're also not very confident when you're speaking about HR matters. You're not a thought leader in your organization. People are very comfortable having meetings without you because you're not bringing value. What is the difference between you and the accountant? And the accountant is able to define their technical things and also talk about people because they are leading. But for you, can you be able to understand technical HR? We're doing a job evaluation the other day. By the way, we have a masterclass on job evaluation coming up in November. And one of the reasons we are organizing this is because we realize even some HR, you give them a job evaluation report, they cannot interpret it for their leadership. They do not understand it. I understand that it's a technical area, but one of the things that will make you be respected is to be able to understand these technical areas. You've seen the way the wakilis talk about them. They talk their jargon. You hear when we start talking about job evaluations, you go on TikTok, or you're there saying, I do not have, I concur, or I agree. we need to really, really invest before we even start looking at the managers who are not able to do these things. We need to understand it ourselves. We really need to invest in ourselves. Technical HR is your business. Technical HR is your business, my friends. Richard.
Very good, Grace. You are on fire. And if you want to stop talking like I conquer, pass, I train people in public speaking. And Grace, I love the point that you have mentioned that performance management does not start today. It is a culture thing. And there is a saying that is wrongly attributed to Peter Drucker that culture eats strategy. It is not him who said that. It has been proven. Now, where should culture be domiciled? Where should culture be? Who should spearhead the change culture? For example, performance management, compliance. Who should promote culture change in an organization?
Now, the culture is led by the leadership. HR is an enabler. Okay? HR is an enabler of culture. HR is like a conveyor belt when it comes to culture. HR sits in the middle. So leadership, we normally say the tone is set at the top. And you can look at the culture conversation we had the other day with Damaris. And if culture starts at the top, or the tone is set at the top, HR is an enabler of culture. However, HR cannot enable culture if the other managers are not together. So HR enables culture, but leadership creates the culture. So if we want to create a culture of performance, is we need to sit with our leadership and understand, what does performance mean to them? How does success look to them? You know, how does success look to them? And then from there, you go and look at your HR strategy and say, you know what? This one is actually going to make us thrive. And then you go ahead and do it. So, and I keep saying, HR, please stop just being stuck with writing show cause notices. Don't get stuck with compliance only. Go ahead, ask, what is the business environment? You know, sometimes I do consultancy and I go into some organizations and you realize that the leadership does not want to discuss what the business is going. And for me, how I do it is I go and sit with the other managers and I'm like, so what has been said as important to you this week? And they will be happy to tell me, you know, I'm supposed to deliver 1, 2, 3 things. And then the other manager will tell me I'm supposed to deliver into 1, 2, 3 things. And then I'll find my way around it. Because you can tell where the business is focusing, not necessarily because the management has a document, but because other people, they know at the back of their minds. And that's why sometimes I keep saying, you know, I like sitting with the business owners. I'm just giving you tips. Around 11:30 midday, they seem to have had pressure gone down. I like going to sit with them and I go and I have an agenda. I go and I have 2 reports. And then I want to also ask them, where are we? You know, do you have anything for HR? What else can HR do to support the business? That way, you stop sitting back and waiting, and then they give you directions. You actually start being proactive. And I think that is one of the challenges that we need. Please, HR, build your confidence. And then you don't go there to report on matters, what we call in Kenya, kujipendekeza. Like you're just looking for, what do we call kujipendekeza in English, Richard? You know, my Ugandan friends here will kill me.
Inveil. It is inveil. It is like seducing the powers that be using other probably not very good methods so that you can be at the front of something. Yeah.
Yes. So it is important that we actually be on the lookout so that we are not going there to, for lack of a better word, kiss us. I think we can say it out here. You're there with facts, you're there with agenda, you are there speaking the language, and then you can have a proper conversation because you're able to think at the same level. Right, Richard?
Now that you've dealt with culture, that culture is domiciled in the leadership, and HR is the person who's supposed to be the conveyor belt. The other thing I could like to ask is this: how can HRs graduate from doing very clerical, very repetitive kinds of things so that it can become strategists? The reason why sometimes HRs are neglected is because they are seen as people who do repetitive things. They do not think 2 years, they do not think 5 years. How do we become very strategic people? How do we
Yes.
graduate in thinking? And I love the fact that you have mentioned that we have to be friends of the business.
Yes, and I think we've answered that question, Richard. Now, after you have polished your technical skills, the rest of the things is soft skills, and part of your soft skills is to be able to think like an entrepreneur. If you can think like an entrepreneur, you will be invited to the table, or rather, you'll bring your table and people will follow you. So for us to stop is, first of all, understand and then create time for strategic thinking. Create time for how is your business? Create time to show up, you know. Richard, I think we already answered that. And you have a lot of questions on the chat and on the Q&A.
Yes, as we look for the questions, the other thing that we need to ask ourselves, one of the questions that I normally see, which creates a lot of controversy, it's payment. People think that HRs are the most underpaid. Is it a myth? Is it something we need to do so that we can attract more payment?
Come again?
How HRs are rewarded? How HRs are rewarded? Do you think that they are rewarded fairly? Or what can we do so that we can get paid more?
Now it depends on where you're starting from. I was 2 weeks ago, I was interviewing an HR who earns 1.8 million Kenya shillings. And right now we are recruiting for an HR to earn 50,000 shillings. Is HR underpaid? It depends on your value. It depends on the organization. It depends on actually mostly depends on the organization and the value they put on HR. So yes, there's some organizations who underpay HRs, but there are some that are paying pretty well. Pretty well.
Very good. There's a question here, and it deals with separation. Briefly tell us what is mutual separation. Then, as a second question to that, if you are dismissed, terminated, how quickly should you get over those feelings? Those are two questions. Make us understand what is mutual separation. And if somebody is dismissed, there's that bitterness, there's that desire to revenge. How do you get quickly so that you can look for opportunities so that you're not bogged down by those feelings of having been terminated?
All right. So let me start with mutual separation. Mutual separation is where you have a conversation and agree that this relationship is not working, and the organization will give you a certain amount of money to just make your heart feel better, So mutual separation is where the two of you come in, you agree that this relationship is not working, and what are you gaining by leaving us? Well, this is the package we have for you, and then here we are, document and separate, period. That's it. That's mutual separation. Is it legal? Yes, it is. But you have to be very careful about the letters that you write. You need to really look into it so that it does not be, it is not translated into constructive dismissal. So look at mutual separation. It's actually allowable in law, but how you do it, what you give into it, those are the key things. Now, if you are dismissed summarily, how long does it take for you to process? Now, this is a loss. So you need to grieve the loss. What I keep saying is, from a humane point of view, please don't let the loss dictate to you who you are. Process the loss as quickly as possible. You could be in denial. You could go through the loss cycle. The grief cycle. If you don't know it, you can Google it. The grief cycle. By the time you get to acceptance, sometimes it takes longer. Depends on individuals. There are people who will be like, you know what, this is the end of it. I need to pick myself up. And then you start looking for the next job. And then if you thought that it was unfair, why was it unfair? You technically forgive yourself for the parts you played and then seek to move on. If it is too much, you can always consult a therapist and they will be able to help you process the loss so that then you can bounce back as quickly as possible and start looking for your next job. Richard.
Thank you. My friend Jennifer is asking, and it's about culture. What in a situation whereby the culture, the bad vibes are from the top? How do you manage this? Culture is coming from.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and I empathize because that becomes a very difficult place to sometimes execute. Here's the thing: if you are in a culture that is very toxic, do your job. If you're able to eliminate the noise means the people, the things they say that is not factual, you eliminate. If not, you go do your job and go home as you look for the next job, really. And pray that the next job is not as toxic. I know a person who quit from a toxic environment and they went to another environment and they wished they had stuck to the other toxic environment. So if you're in a just look within you in terms of in a culture where it is not very conducive. Look within you. What can you take? What can't you take? And then start looking for better jobs at other places and do your background check. Yeah. Yeah.
I can see Christine is asking, do you have to state the reasons for separation in mutual separation?
Yes and no, depends on what you put in there. There are some reasons that you'll put as a basis for mutual separation, and they don't sound like operation. You can't say, because you are caught doing this and this, the organization has decided to mutually separate. Now, that one will be very looking like a dismissal. So you ought to see what is the reason that you're putting there. You can say it, but not in a direct way. Yes.
Okay, I can see Akbar is asking, in situations whereby the HR strategic contradicts the organizational plans, what can you do?
The HR?
The HR strategic plans are not aligned to organizational plans. Is there anything you can do?
Yes, you need to review your plans as HR. You cannot do a HR plan without that is not aligned to the business. You need to look at the business first and then align HR, not the other way around. You cannot have a HR strategy that the business comes to align to. It will not work. You go and review your strategy so that is aligned to the business strategy. Right.
Very good. I can see Dismas is requesting for a minute to say something about how you should. I don't know if we can allow him to say something. Dismas?
Okay, we can change settings as you read the other question.
Okay, all right.
Your Q&A is full, eh?
Yeah, those ones I've summarized. As a mutual separation, it has been said that one, it's a bit tricky. How do you handle employees who, when you question them, if they think you have a problem, will take, but they call themselves, yes. I am unable to understand that question. How do you handle employees who, when you question them, they if you think you are they imagine that you are the problem. If you tell them something, that is what I think is asking. I don't know if Grace, you can be able to understand that question.
No, maybe they can clarify.
Please kindly relate the question. In restructure, a position for a staff on approved maternity is made redundant, like the rest of the other, and she happens to get sick, suffering from a high blood pressure. At what point could you communicate to her the bad news? When you are restructuring, yes.
That is a very, very sensitive matter. Can you wait until they give birth? Is it possible? Would be the question. Maybe the person with that question can reach out to me directly so that we look at the variables. Yeah. Yeah. We have allowed Dismas to talk.
Dismas, you had something to say? Dismas, are you there? Okay, maybe we'll let him prepare. How do you handle a situation whereby an employee is not allowed to serve a notice after resigning? That is Mercy Kamoni.
They are not allowed to serve notice. You pay them. You pay them in lieu of notice.
I think she's asking about garden leave.
All right. Where is the question? So that I can
The
see,
question,
or you can read the whole question.
let me go where it is.
If you look for it, there's somebody saying, I was let go due to funding and I feel bitter. How do I rise from this? You really need to process your loss. You need to process your loss. If you need therapy, please go and see a therapist so that you can unpack why you're so bitter. Because if they did not have funding, they were not going to be able to pay you. But where is this bitterness coming from? That is the one thing that we need to unpack. And then from there, how can we move on? What do you need to move on? And if you came for coaching, one of the questions that we'd ask is, if you were, every factor was held constant, what else would you be doing? Because you're wasting your potential in this bitterness. However, it is okay to process it, but you need to process it and get over it so that you can be able to tap into other opportunities that come.
Yes, the question, Mercy, is
how
do you have a situation whereby an employee is not allowed to serve a notice after resigning?
Oh, an employee resigns and then they are told leave now. Oh God, I have seen those employers. I think one of the things that as HR we need to learn is what I talked about, communication. Because if you're told that this person should not sign that serve notice, if you resign, you go, then you need to pay them for that 1 month. You need to pay them in lieu of notice because they wanted to serve notice and you're not allowing them. So if you want them gone immediately because they have resigned, I know employers who cannot take the resignations, they get very bitter with the employee. And sometimes I think the employee is okay to leave because that month, 1 month of that bitterness might be the most toxic month of their lives. So if you can, please pay them for the 1 month. If they have resigned, pay them in lieu of notice and tell them, instead of serving notice, here is your 1 month in lieu of notice, and separate.
The other question I've seen, how do you handle a colleague that wants to overshadow you, outsmart you, outmanage you? How do you deal with that?
That's an employee who is in competition with you. And some of these things, you've ever heard of the saying that you don't have to show up at every battle you're invited to? Yes, please don't show up at every battle you're invited to. Please don't. Just show up to, I keep saying, HR, you need to pray for wisdom every single day because you need it. If people are in competition with you, you need to look at what point are you competing with them, and then what can you take and what can you not take. Because if you start competing with them, then the environment becomes very toxic. And probably you're also not made that way. So you're going to get tired. And at the end of the day, they will ban you. So if you can, please look at what is objectively, what you can and cannot do. Yeah. The boss always.
Now, the other question now is clear. You question an employee, they say you have a problem, and they want to seek permission from people above you, for example, the CEO. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, some of your employees, especially those who have, I have been here for 20 years, may not have respect for you. And they think because they have the ear of the CEO, they can always bypass you. And I keep saying, it is okay if you want to bypass me. But one of the things that I personally would do is have a conversation with the CEO. And I will go to the CEO and say, you know what? You want to approve this leave? That's fine. I have no problem with it. But this is part of my job. And I would really appreciate if you gave me support so that I'm able to do the job that I'm able to do. Of course, you're not the past supervisor approving leave. Your work is to note that leave has been approved and make sure that your records are safe. Otherwise, leave approval should be from the supervisor. But yeah, for me, I keep saying that you need to have a word with you really need to develop a working relationship with your management so that you also think in business terms, so that you also earn respect. If your work is to always complain, always play victim, my friend, you will never see the other side. People will always want to bypass you. And then you also need to look at this person. Are they those people who just prefer working with the leadership? Because they also have their own issues. Yeah. So sometimes you choose the battles you want to fight and leave the ones that you don't need to fight.
Thank you, Grace. There's another question here. An employee resigns. The management talks to this particular employee to stay. They stay. Then again, they resign. Then now they have disciplinary issues. They generally, they're indisciplined. How do you deal with it?
First of all, if this person resigned and they were asked to stay and they are now being misbehaving, you go ahead and implement your discipline management policy. They just because they resigned and they were asked to stay does not make them above law. In fact, they are still employees of that organization. So the same way you'd have dealt with them before they resigned, the same way you deal with them now. And then I think one of the things that we really need to learn as HRs is to speak business language, so that even before these people resign and they are asked to stay, you are the one who is going to negotiate those conversations. So that even as you negotiate and ask this person to stay, they know you are not asking, you are the one asking them to stay. You are the messenger asking them to stay. So that then, even when they are misbehaving and then you're calling them to discipline them, you still stand a better chance. When they are having that conversation with their management to ask them to stay, please be in that meeting. Even if you want to ask to be in that meeting so that you can take notes. But the fact that you're in that meeting, your presence there will give you power to actually take action if they are misbehaving. Really, HRs, we really need to get out of this part of, gosh, this person has been, whatever management is doing this and this and this. We need to start being in those conversations respectfully, and we need to make sure that we have earned our place very quickly. Very quickly. We need to do that. Richard.
The question and your response has reminded me of this question I normally see in chats, WhatsApp, and Telegram. You resign, then you're told, oh, Richard, you've resigned, then we can add 50,000 on top. Should you stay? Should you go? What should you do, Grace?
I lost you somewhere. I started reading something else. Sorry. What did you say?
I am asking, you resign, then the management, in their own wisdom, they say, okay, Richie, we can add you 100,000. Should you stay or should you go?
That is a very tricky thing. It depends on the organization. You having been in that organization, what do they do? How do they treat people who stay? What kind of persons are they? If they are not very good people, please, if you resign and go, whether they are giving you 100,000 or more, because some of them want you to stay and then they will fire you. And you probably will have given, you'll have given up another opportunity. And yeah, I think that is, you need to really look at, some of these things, if we ask you to stay, it depends on the organization. So you need to really look at the organization. When they say, when I resigned, I was asked to stay, and I actually stayed another 1 year. So it depends on the organization where you want to be. And I see the question on maternity. She's now 3 weeks after delivery. If she has given birth, my good friend, you can always go and communicate. And especially not now, you do that after the maternity leave has lapsed. So you have 2 months to go. But you can have the conversation within, after maternity leave, yes. You can have that conversation. You find management involve you on the decision. You need to be involved in the decisions, yes. Working in a family business as a HR can be tricky. CEO brings in his drug-addicted baby brother to do just any job as long as they are in the payroll. I hear you. I've done a lot of work with, including now. I think I have quite a number of clients who are business, what do we call it, family-owned businesses. It's an extreme sport, but some of them are really, really awesome. And then you need to know when to deal with who and who is the power where. Yes. Does Grace do coaching? Yes, I do coaching. How do I become a coachee? Talk to me. You have my email address. You have my number. Please talk to me. Richard, we need to end this in the next couple of minutes. So maybe we can take 2 questions.
I've seen Dismas has come.
Yeah, please. Just a simple one. Grace, Richard, thanks for the forum. Now, just to help the HRs, go over this hurdle of feeling and, not so confident about putting forward business cases. Now, there is the issue of HR analytics, which tends to scare a number of people. They think you have to think big formulas with a lot of things that are difficult to understand for it to be believed. It is not. Basically, what the management wants you to is tell it to them in the simplest terms possible. And one thing I have come to appreciate recently is the use of AI. Now, if, for example, you need to justify taking some people for training in your organization and you want to, put forward a business case to management, ask ChatGPT as if he or she, I don't know whether the GPT is a he or a she, was your very good friend. Tell ChatGPT, for example, I want to recommend to the management one of my colleagues to go for training in, for example, training needs assessment. Can you give me clues on the justifications that I can give to management for them to approve this? And remember, I am in Kenya. I'm an HR in a Kenyan organization. Give ChatGPT that kind of background information, then just sit back, relax. It will give you very compelling reasons, which are good justifications to convince anybody. Just read through. If it is giving you a few nonsense here and there, edit them, just make sure that they're flowing and be convinced about them yourself and then put it across. It's extremely easy and you will be surprised at how valuable information you get, and you will be convincing beyond what you thought you were capable of. Thank you very much. That was the only comment I wanted to give.
Thank you, Dismas. In other words, what you're telling us, HR people should be very good in prompt engineering. We have dealt with that in, I think, 2 episodes. I think, Grace, right? You should be very proficient in prompt engineering so that you can generate answers using artificial intelligence. There is a question here. Jacinta, kindly share the link to Get It Right at Other Solutions so that people can join. Kindly share. There is some clarification you need to do, Grace, on redundancy and pregnancy. Does it mean that somebody who is on maternity cannot be sent on redundancy? Maybe you need to clarify that.
Maternity is normally a very, very gray area when it comes to some of these things. There are quite a number of court cases. You can check out the court rulings. I keep advising employers, what is so much to do with 2 months of notice? The person will not be on maternity leave forever. If you want to declare them redundant, that's fine. Have you done the processes that were supposed to be done? And then if you want to declare them redundant, are you going to call them back from their maternity leave to come and receive their letters? Or how are you going to manage that? Or do you expect that they're on maternity leave, so they're reading their emails? Some of these things become very not very clear. So I would advise you keep off. To be honest, sometimes you just decide, you know what, we're going to pay her for the next 2 months and then she will start her notice. Because maternity conversations can be very, very emotive. And unfortunately, A lot of losses have come to organizations because of interfering with maternity. So please weigh your options, seek advice, look for legal backing on maternity. And because you were saying somebody's already on maternity, a whole month into maternity, and then now you want to call them back from maternity to come and receive the letters, or how do you intend to manage the process? You know, redundancies are very, very difficult. I can tell you that for a fact. If you're declaring people redundancy, you know, somebody will just say you're declaring redundancy to them because they're on maternity leave. So it's easier to declare them redundant as soon as that last day of maternity leave, so that when they come the following day, they find they're redundant. Unfortunately, it is so bad, it is so wrong, but it is what it is.
Yes, Grace, there is a question by Sharon. How do you deal with superstars, Grace, who want to be treated in a special way when they perform things that are not supposed to be done? How do you manage high-performing employees who want to be treated specially?
Now, if you're high performing and you have bad manners, you need to address the bad manners. I think you get blinded, and I know, because as an employer myself, I know sometimes you have employees who are very, very good, very, very good in delivering results, but they're the same people who will probably be drunk, or they'll probably be coming to work late, or you know, some of these things. So you really need to see to what extent can you push them, how much can your organization take. And this is why I keep saying, please follow that 9 grid there rule. Sometimes you have high performance and low potential people. What do you do with them? Because you sometimes would rather have somebody who is a moderate performer, but they also have moderate potential, because you can grow them. So look into this behavior. What exactly is it? You know, can you handle it? For me, I would fire you, by the way, even if you are a good performer. But I know, hey, I'm not everybody. So sometimes you need to check at the impact of their behavior, because you're setting precedents. What is the impact of their behavior, not to only one person, but to the organization? And sometimes you need to also package it in a very business language, so that your boss can understand what you're talking about. And Richard, there's a question from Veronica as we finish. As
Yeah, the one
HR,
for
yeah,
there is one where your boss takes credit for every other achievement.
that is an amazing tool. Please, you serve at the pleasure of your boss. Let your boss take credit. Even if you have done what, please be comfortable with your boss taking credit. They will always do that. But whenever you get an opportunity to shine, please do. One of the 48 laws of power, please read that book. Do not outshine your boss. Not directly. That means that if your boss wants to take credit for the work done, that's why they are your boss. When your turn comes, you can take credit for you and your others, because you lead differently. And this is why I'm talking about, how do you understand your people? Why do they feel the need to take credit for work? You know, why do they feel the need to take credit for work? Some could be very strong cholerics, and cholerics love credit for work, you know. So who are the people you're dealing with? Yeah.
Okay,
There's this
the last
question.
one.
As
You can deal with.
let me read this, Richard. As HR, we shouldn't wait for employees to resign so that we can add salaries. It means we are in position to compensate better. That's very true. Thank you. Richard, go ahead.
There's a question from Joroge. I cannot be able to see it. Where is it? Can you read it, Jacinta? I can't see it.
Yes, we have a mentorship program, as Richard is looking for that. We have a mentorship program called Growth Grid. The next cohort is in January 2026. If you're on WhatsApp, you will actually get the notification. And if you're on our mailing list, we'll also send out an email. Coaching, I do coaching. You can ask, you can contact me. I'll give you our rates, and you can see.
Very good. I have seen that question by Njoroge. When your boss does not hold to the concept of confidentiality, what will you do?
oh, oh God. Be careful what you tell them. That would be my answer. If somebody is not withholding confidentiality, why are you giving them confidential information? Let me tell you something that HR needs to do is when you package things about the organization and you're discussing things that affect people, be very careful how you package them, especially to a leader who will not hold confidentiality. Because you already know that, why are you going to tell them things that you know they will say? If you need to tell them things that you're comfortable, even if they came publicly. Yes.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the moment that you created so that you can come and ask questions that are very important to you. When you think about outsourcing, think about Atar Solutions, getting it right. When you think about team building, when you think about learning and development, please, who else are you giving business if it's not Atar Solutions? Every Tuesday, we are here to break concepts into their smallest bits, demystifying concepts. The only way that you can be able to pay Atara Solutions is to recommend Atara Solutions to your friends, to your colleagues, to those senior people who make decisions. My name is Richard J. Magoma. Your parting shot, Grace.
I think my parting shot would be very, very simple. This saying we say in Kenya, kujituma. You need to be proactive. HR professionals, please be proactive. Understand your business, understand your technical side of the job, and invest in soft skills, which is what will give you leadership. And whenever you're stuck, please also seek help. It is important. Even me, sometimes I will call because sometimes things can get very complicated. We are dealing with people, and people can be very emotive, and things can change given on the situation. So seek help. Don't do life alone. Here we are every Tuesday giving you knowledge. Please invest, yeah, and get to be very good at what you do so that then you become a thought leader, even in your organization. You don't have to be a thought leader out here. You start, charity begins at home. You start with your organizations.
Lastly, there is going to be a book launch. Elaborate, throw something about it.
Yes. Yeah, yes. I have co-authored a book called Do It Afraid with a couple of ladies, and we have a launch on the 30th of August here in Nairobi. So please be on the lookout. Join us here in Nairobi, and if not, we shall bring the books to you. You can order. The book is 2,500, and for the launch plus book is 5,500. So join us. There's a whole chapter I have written on. My chapter is actually called Raised to Obey. Raised to Obey, Born to Lead. And there's a lot of nuggets there on how to lead when afraid. So, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night. HR is the most noble profession that you can be able to be practicing. Enjoy it. It has been a pleasure having you. Good night. Thank you, Catherine Shidandi, for sign language. Thank you very much, Grace. Thank you so much with your team for having created this particular.
Richard, wait, there's a comment here. Imagine having an HR who should be people person, but instead is so biased and irrational and tribal at the same time. Aworo, poleni sana. Poleni sana. I am so sorry that you have to deal with such people. Poleni. Richard, go ahead.
Thank you very much. You can join the WhatsApp group where the conversation continues. It has been shared by Jacinta. Good night. See you on Tuesday with another delightful and captivating topic. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much and have a lovely evening. Good night, all. Good night, all.
If you pass along this way, no, I'm fine and still okay. Even love that walks place it once called home. The tide still rolls where we once lay. Footprints gone, the sea took them away. I watched your shadow slip through time, like a soft verse without a rhyme. Evening bells along the shore sing a song we don't share anymore. You kissed the wind and left me there in a silence too heavy to bear. Was it love or just the sun fading down when day was done? I still hear your voice